Series. Today I have with me young filmmakers, writers, directors, Jeremy and Marcy. Hello, would you guys introduce yourselves and give us a little more background on who you are and what you do?
I'm Jeremy Lutter, and I've been a filmmaker for as long as I can remember. Since I was, I think, in high school is the only reason I passed any of my courses, because they didn't know how to grade them. And then I've gone on to shoot a bunch of genre sort of things about robots and monsters and that sort of thing over the past many years.
I'm Marcy Waughtal. I'm a writer and producer. My story about writing goes very similar to Jeremy's. I've just been doing it like pretty much as long as I could put sentences together. Yeah, I wrote and produced Giltrude's Dwelling with Jeremy. And then after that, I went on to a feature film program with Women in Film and Television Vancouver called Tricksters and Writers for Indigenous women writers. Yeah, then we just did Ghost Town during the pandemic.
Super cool. Now, speaking about Ghost Town Killer, your podcast series, I would like you to tell me all about it, basically. Give me the premise and anything else you want to share, but we'll talk a little more about it as well. I have a few other questions, but please just go ahead.
Ghost Town Killer is a crime drama audio series. It's set in a small dying town in Canada. In BC, we have this area called Valley of the Ghosts, which I didn't realize until researching ghost towns, that BC has high per capita area, and in the lower Kootenays, there's this area called Valley of the Ghosts where a bunch of towns have failed. And so we thought, what a dramatic time to be writing a story in a town that's about to not exist anymore. And then always just a big fan of the crime drama. I guess I've seen a lot of them, and I really like the twists and turns in them, and I've always wanted to do one. Cool. And then, so Ghost Town Killer follows Lilith Black, who's a paranormal investigator who turns investigative journalist. It's sort of a story about the truth, or what truth and myth means in our culture. And her sister gets murdered in a ghost town, and she tries to find the killer over 6 episodes. And everyone in the town is kind of a suspect in the thing, and kind of digs up a bunch of things about the town as well as it goes on. So the location is definitely a character in the story, and she embraces becoming a journalist as opposed to being a ghost story person over the course of the thing, trying to figure out the truth of the thing.
Well, Marcy, you mentioned Giltrude's Dwelling. I just wanted to pop back to that for a moment, if I could. I just wondered if you had any updates regarding it. It was a short that you guys did and it's screened at the Blood in the Snow Festival back in 2019, and that's when I saw it. It was great, and I think you mentioned to me at the time, both of you, we were talking at the press thing, that you were hoping to expand on that world and the story. I'm just wondering where it is now, where it's headed, anything like that.
Well, the main issue was that we kept on being asked, you guys have never done anything episodic before. And we were asked that 100 times over and over again. And then we decided to write Ghost Town Killer to give an answer to that question. People were like, you've never, because we had only ever done one-offs, and by one-offs I mean like features and shorts that have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And it's true, I had never really worked on we had never really worked on anything episodic, but now we have. The thing, people say, have you made anything episodic? I go, yes. You don't even have to read it, you can just press play. I had some people read out the lines for you on the thing. So yeah, Ghost Town was kind of motivated by our search to expand Giltrude and wanting to make another episodic thing first, because sci-fi genre stuff is hard in the terms of, so we wanted to make a thing first and then reassess afterward.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Feeling a bit more ready to tackle that, but it's very soon in the thing. Definitely definitely learned a lot about episodic doing Ghost Town Killer, for sure, about the importance of cliffhangers and like how the episodic storytelling works in terms of that.
Of character too. But I mean, character is always important, but I think in series it just becomes like the most important thing.
Yeah, and that overall arc of the entire series and what how you have to break it down episode to episode kind of thing, and that their particular journey. Yeah, no, that's cool, and I assume that's why everybody was asking you, have you ever done anything episodic? And now that you can answer that question with a yes, they'll be interested in Giltrude's dwelling and what you want to do with it for sure. Now, did you mention to me, Jeremy, that you shot the Giltrude's dwelling short in a haunted house?
Yes, it's
So
true.
haunted.
It's some ghost themes. I don't. Do you want to?
Oh yeah. So I guess we went to go do our techs. So it's like this very prominent, like big haunted house in New Westminster.
Okay.
And we went to go do our tech. It looks like a haunted house.
Mhm.
We went to go do our tech scout, and our production designer was with us. And she's like, my dad helped restore that house. She's like, I don't even believe in ghosts, but that house is totally haunted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. She was like, oh, like the lights will turn themselves like on and off. And I guess like some nights they had to like spend the night in the house. And she said it was not the most fun.
No, just not comfortable there, like an odd feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did anything happen to you guys when you were?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You tell.
So which one was there were two things.
We were running some shots looking out some
Mhm.
windows, and there was someone who kept on walking through and ruining the shot, like blocking the light. And then I was asking, who is that that's
'cause
walking
there was
and
a
wrecking
PA
these
outside.
shots? And then the person that was outside said, there's no one out here. I've been standing out here this whole time. And that was a bit weird because
Yeah.
clearly everyone saw the
Oh,
whatever
yeah,
it was
totally a
walking around
person.
and like blocking the light. But according to the PA outside, there was no one ever walked through the thing. So
Yeah.
talked to the ghost and asked them if they would please stop walking through the shot. And then they did. And it was a bit when you normally when I rent or do these things, it's easier just to leave the gear inside. And for insurance purposes, someone should stay with the gear. And like on a big Hollywood thing, you'd hire someone to do that. I don't have money to do that. So I normally take volunteers, but someone who wants to like spend the night in the house with the gear. And there was no volunteers in the thing at all. It's like, does someone want to spend the night here in this gorgeous big character home?
Yeah.
And you could hear crickets chirping. And I guess we're gonna spend the night then in this house. And it was quite the night. For sure.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah, they had cats on the property, and so the cats stayed in the basement while we were filming.
Mhm.
And as soon as we were done, like I could hear like the cats like crying from like the basement and like scratching at the doors, and I was like, oh no, the poor kitties, like let's just let them out for like 5 minutes. And we opened the door to let the cats out, and they just bolted in like different directions.
Oh.
And one of them, I went to go pick him up. I was like, okay, time to go back in the basement. And he's this like big, like fluffy ragdoll cat, like just like butter, like when you pick him up.
Yeah.
And I brought him over to the basement and like completely and put him like down next to the stairs. And he just looked at the basement and like hissed. Like complete
you know
mood
what he
change.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the
cool
start
stuff.
of the night.
What is the house normally?
It's an office. I think that they tried to it was a lawyer who bought the house because I think she just fell in love with it, and then they tried renting it out as wedding venues, and then said that wedding people are very intense clients, which I could totally see that they are. Having worked on some wedding things on my own, I was just like, oh yeah, totally. It's just like you're working on the one most important thing in their life, like over and over and over again. I could see that. So they had rented it out to other film things before. They were very film friendly.
Yeah.
And some bigger and smaller indie things, and some bigger. I think it was on Supernatural. They had some pictures up in the thing.
Yeah.
Clearly, film fans.
Yeah.
And the thing, and it was just they were using it as an office. So I think that some of the rooms we couldn't go in because they were rented out to different people. It was like I don't even remember that was in the thing.
Psychiatrist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it was just we just basically needed the foyer because Giltrude's dwelling is a short about transitions, and we needed the coolest looking foyer we could find, and that house definitely had a very cool foyer.
Oh yes.
And the thing with the big staircase and everything in it. But
Can Giltrude's dwelling be seen anywhere at the moment? Like,
if you're in Canada, I think that it's still on the CBC, so you could watch it there. I believe it's geo-blocked. But that would be the only place at the present moment.
Okay.
Once the CBC thing ends, we'll reconsider what we want to do with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's on CBC in
Yeah.
Canada. So
Awesome.
please go and check it out.
Yeah.
That's our short about a magic traveling house.
Yeah, it's very cool. Check it out indeed. And now getting back to Ghost Town Killers. First of all, where can people find this podcast series to check it out?
It's on, well, I don't know, it's on all major platforms, I
Yeah.
guess. And then
Yeah,
we
Apple
also
Podcasts,
Stitcher, Spotify,
Spotify.
and it's also on ghosttownkiller.com. So you
Mhm.
can watch it right on there. There's a player and all
Listen
of
to it.
or listen, sorry.
Yeah.
God, I'm such a filmmaker. Other
I
people have
know.
been saying that too, and I've been correcting them.
Yeah, people have been like, "Oh, we watched your podcast."
No, you didn't. In your
I mean, it's supposed to create images in your head.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we accomplished that at least.
But no, it's on ghosttownkiller.com, as
Perfect.
well as all of the other places that you would expect to listen to an audio thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, so what about haunted ghost town stories in your research? So you mentioned you uncovered some stuff. So like, can you expand? Is the story about the serial killer true? Like, is that based on a true ghost story?
Yeah, that's a true story.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. That was I mean, there's no facts or corroboration about whether or not the thing actually happened,
Mhm.
but it sort of held a place in my mind that it was a myth that was necessary to like, and it probably was based on some truth in the
Mhm.
thing, maybe like blown up out of proportion
Mhm.
in the thing. But yeah, that is an actual Canadian like story that people tell.
Yeah.
In the thing, and like, yeah, it was just interesting researching all these towns that died, some quite big ones actually, like there was one up north that had like 2 schools and a field hospital, and like these were quite like big established things that were just
Mhm.
set around like one mine, and then
Yeah.
when the mine like stopped being profitable, it just
Right.
all like went away. And
Yeah.
it was just
Ocean Falls, like too, like you come into Ocean Falls and you can only access it by boat. And so you come into Ocean Falls, it's kind of on the central coast. And there's like the dock and there's a few boats there. And then there's this huge, like imposing, I can't remember if it was a hotel or a hospital,
Mhm.
but like it's like a full on like probably 12-story
Wow.
building that's no windows, just these like black holes into the abyss.
Mm.
Yeah.
and
So like I didn't see any ghosts, but it does not take a lot of imagination
Absolutely.
in those places.
and then there's this ghost town museum. It was a Three Valley Gap, was that the
Yeah,
place it
Three
was
Valley
called?
Gap.
It was like on the way to Revelstoke up the highway. There's this
Mhm.
hotel in this, like, it looks a bit like the Outlook Hotel, like it's in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
surrounded by things, and you see it driving like in the vantage point, and all I could think about was the Outlook Hotel, and I've never stopped there and gone by it many times. And then
Yeah.
I noticed that there was a sign next to it that said Ghost Town Museum.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this thing, I was like, okay, I guess we're going to stop and look at this Ghost Town Museum. And I guess the owner or the previous owner of the house had collected old buildings that were and moved them like piece by piece.
Yeah, like
So
board by board, took like these old buildings from ghost towns and like set them up in his like massive museum.
So he has a
like,
whole bunch of old buildings that were scattered across
Yeah.
BC that he had moved to this place.
He has
So
a
like he
roundhouse.
created a ghost town out of like old
Yeah.
abandoned buildings
and the
that he had
trains. They collected
donated.
trains.
Yeah, and it was
He collected like old like Via Rail trains and had like a whole roundhouse full of like his train collection.
totally worth checking out on the thing.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So sorry, where is that again?
Three Valley Gap on the way to
Yeah,
Revelstoke.
it's just
So
I feel like it's about 40 minutes outside of Revelstoke on
Okay.
Highway 3.
yeah, 8 hours out of Vancouver though, like a long drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. But the hotel was, I kind of wanted to spend a night there in the
Yeah,
thing.
the
It
hotel
definitely
looked totally
had a
haunted,
haunted
too.
vibe.
Yeah,
for
a little bit
sure.
of The Shining.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Look.
I went inside just to see the foyer, and I think the owners were running it, and she goes, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "Oh, I just wanted to look at the architecture. This building is like super impressive."
Yeah. And there were no guests there at the hotel because we were there kind of at it was last summer, but it was kind of at the very end of summer too.
Right. So the end of the season kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this like big hotel was just totally empty. And there was like the odd tourists, but yeah.
Yeah, that's freaky.
And
Yeah,
just
definitely a place to go write a horror novel.
Yeah.
and just in general, like the way ghost stories work, I find them fascinating, that they like fill this social, like this cultural thing. They're like, we need to tell stories about these things, and like it definitely serves a purpose in terms of, and like it does in that in our thing as well about Ghost Town Killer, and this line between like myth and fact. And like myth isn't always bad, like in terms of like telling things that aren't, because like we have gaps in our knowledge and we like to fill them with like things that we don't know, but then when we do know, and then there's this like conflict between those two things, and I just found it interesting.
Absolutely. And then like that ghost towns are not necessarily paranormal per se, they're just abandoned, but there's still the feeling, there's still like that element that in the back of your head, just using the word ghost in ghost town sort of makes the whole thing creepier. Not just that they're not just abandoned, this is a ghost town, and it just sort of, it really gets your imagination going. So it's like, I've always been fascinated by ghost towns too.
And when you see them, they like felt like they were like walked away from too, like people's stuff is just there, and it just feels like a life that was stopped. Like, and it's a very visual representation of like that, and it's strange, like this is someone's home, like in the thing, and like home carries with it all this weight. I think about that, and like I don't, yeah, it'd be weird because I'd be, and also this is a theme throughout the podcast as well, as what home means. And like I would be sad if my, like I grew up in Victoria on the island. Of that I mean, it's never going to turn to a ghost town, but if it did, I'd be really sad about it. Like I'd be like, I have all these like feelings about growing up there, and like, you know, and it would just be, it'd be weird to like the place that you grew up not being a place anymore.
And the reason, that people had to walk away from it, whatever that reason may have been, like that's got some a lot of sad notes to it too, usually. I mean, people don't just abandon places for no reason. Especially like a very extreme example is the whole Chernobyl thing.
No,
and so that's a ghost town there, right beside there. So with people just like abandoning stuff, just leaving it there. And if I can't believe there are tours around that, but there are. But yeah, so anyway, it just adds to the creep factor, the background of why. And as you said before, Jeremy, maybe having some holes in that, gaps in the knowledge of like why exactly did people leave and so forth, or playing upon that if you're creating a story around it. So
had a very fun time working in Ghost Town Killer, for sure, creating myths and like trying to figure out this what this dying town would feel like, and can they turn it around, and like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting too. It's not this particular ghost town isn't quite a ghost town yet. So can they, so but can you save a ghost town from becoming a total ghost town? Tell me a little bit about the actual production. How was it working with your cast and crew and post or during production and so forth? How was that?
It was weird because we did it in the pandemic, and we remotely recorded everyone, which isn't necessarily what I would have done in another situation. I'm a big fan of like getting acting is mostly about reacting and that sort of thing, but it actually worked out really well. Some very talented actors on board, a lot of our first choices. I was a mix of people I'd worked with before and people I'd always wanted to work with. So it was like kind of new writing it, who we were hoping to get to play most of the parts, and most of them actually worked out to the person that we were thinking. And
like Tadashi, you always picture that as hero, right?
And I'd always wanted to work with him as well, like on something. So I was very happy when I went through his agent and I got a yes. I was super excited. And it was it was interesting because there was a lot of remote recording, and every actor had a different process, and we were just trying to facilitate whatever their process was. Some actors swore by that they wanted to just do the lines because they thought their characters were isolated and didn't care what the other actors were saying anyway. And I could see why. Like I could see why those characters would want to be that way. There's a serial killer later that's played by Gabriel, and he like was just like, no, my character's just in his own little bubble. I'm just going to do all the lines. And then he did most of them, and then he came to me and he goes, okay, I actually want to, like, these scenes are important. Like I want to play me the other actors like recordings and the thing about the thing, because I think it's important on these moments. And we just kind of figured it out by a lot of loose recording. And I think a lot of the actors they were TV actors that hadn't necessarily done audio drama. Some of them had done animation before. And it was just, a lot of just recording lines and figuring out what works or doesn't work. Sometimes we would do a Zoom thing where everyone was recording in the same moment. Other times it was like one actor would read first and I would send some takes to a different one, and then we figured it out.
Right.
It was a learning experience, and strangely, learned a lot about audio storytelling, which I didn't necessarily know.
Yeah, there were so many like surprise lessons. Like originally we wrote the script with a lot more description from Lilith and a lot more narration.
Mhm.
And then as we started designing it, we realized, oh, like you don't need to have her say, I walked into a room, because obviously you hear her footsteps and
Yeah.
the door opening.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
totally creates images.
Yeah,
of
and
the
even
thing.
like things where so I was like, okay, so no like physical descriptions, but like describing things like mood and tone, like when she's in a place, it's like you don't need to describe that thing or that stuff either, because the actors get that across.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we cut a lot of narration from it, I think, in the end.
I
Yeah.
felt like I had come full circle as like a storyteller, because I had actually got my start filmmaking doing music videos, because they were an easy way to make a short thing, and the band would normally help out. And like when I first started making movies, it was a lot of music videos, but the audio is set. You get an audio track, and I was only thinking visually about
Mhm.
like color palettes and like what the thing was. And like I did that for so many times that I think that I like visual was overweighted in my brain for sure. And doing this was like the opposite of that. So I feel like I've equally weighted my things now, where
Yes, a good
before I
mental
think I was definitely
exercise.
more of a visual filmmaker.
Right. Right. Well, I'm kind of assuming a lot of filmmakers are.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
like audio is a
it is a
huge
very
part of
visual
it that
medium.
I understood, and I like definitely did all of that, but I feel like doing only audio made me way better as an
Absolutely. No, it
audio
isolates
storyteller
it.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I notice audio now a lot more in TV shows too. Like I've never noticed sound design before, but now like I'll be watching them and be, oh, that's a really great design for the audio there. Because good design, you don't notice it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So now you can appreciate that, and yeah.
Yeah.
So another tool in the toolkit.
The murder mystery thing of doing Ghost Town Killer really taught me a lot about like following the rules of genre, and we really got into like the first version of Ghost Town Killer that we made. It didn't follow or like not the formula, but like the expectations of it, and it felt a bit off. And then when we like throughout adjusting it and putting it like more into the space of the crime genre or the crime drama genre, definitely felt better, just
Yeah.
because of expectations and that sort of thing. So it was I thought making Ghost Town Killer with Marcy was a good lesson in genre storytelling, especially because the rules and expectations of like the murder mystery are so well known.
Yeah, especially like when you go and look at when we went back and looked at some of the things that seemed really groundbreaking at the time, like they still followed the expectations. Like we watched Beetlejuice and realized, oh, this is just a haunted house story, but in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the people are scary and the ghosts are not.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
thing, but like watch Giltrude's Dwelling if you're in Canada on the thing. Please check out the Ghost Town Killer. And I'm trying to get another feature film made this year. It's kind of a serial killer thing, and hopefully later in the year I will be able to get that into production. Just waiting for COVID to ease a little bit more than it is, hopefully, fingers crossed. But like always working on stuff for sure. I know we're both like developing a bunch of stuff, but it's too soon to say what's going to go or not go. And the thing of these things, always have like 5 projects and one of them gets made, and it kind of comes with the territory of creative things.
Gotta have many irons in the fire, as I heard from a development executive in Toronto.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, for sure.
Absolutely.